Welcome to the Music Nut Program. I'm John. Thank you so much for joining me today. And welcome back to the latest edition of It's Chris Whitley Wednesday. On today's show, I will discuss Chris's sixth album, released on July 25, 2000, Perfect Day. This is an album of cover songs, an album of love songs, but you're not your typical love songs. And they are performed with Billy Martin and Chris Wood from the jazz fusion trio Medeski Martin Wood. Now, at the time this was released, a lot of bands and artists were putting out covers albums. Late 90s to about the mid 2000s, you saw quite a lot of them out there. The difference between this album and a lot of those albums is Chris isn't playing it straight, and neither are Billy and Chris Wood. They are making these songs their own. They're giving these songs a lot of space, really letting the rhythms breathe. And Chris is singing in a much more understated tone throughout the album. You're not getting the drama that you have on a lot of the albums that I talked about before. It's very different, and there are songs on here that I did not know the originals to, and just checked them out recently to compare to Chris's versions on here. So this is really was released on Valley Entertainment. It was recorded over 2 days from March 28 and March 29, 2000. And here are the liner notes. There's not too much here. Got a nice picture here on the back. And then here's the CD itself right here. And here's where they list the songs and the who wrote them. And we got a nice picture on the back here of the band in the studio. So let's go over the tracks. The first song is Spanish Harlem Incidents. This album is bookended by Bob Dylan songs, and this one was from the Another Side of Bob Dylan album. This is a little different in scope compared to the Bob Dylan original because the first thing you hear is that Chris is singing very understated, his voice above a whisper, if that, on this album. Where if you hear the original by Bob Dylan, he's singing it with a lot of joy and expression. It's different in that aspect. It's a nice version, but it's the way Chris sings it and the way that the band approach it, it definitely sounds different. I'm going to say that a lot when I go over these songs. Smokestack Lightning, one of a few blues songs that were covered on here. And as I've indicated with Chris, he did a lot of genre jumping, but blues was always the foundation. Unlike the original, which is has more of a rave up type of feel, this is stretched out, a lot of space. It's a lot longer than the original version, and the way they do it at a slower tempo. And Chris's vocals on here again are very understated. They're not as commanding as Howlin' Wolf's were. It's a different kind of version. It's a cool version. China Gate is one of the two songs that I did not know the original. When I did my research, I discovered it was the theme from a movie in 1957 called China Gate. One of the stars in that movie was Nat King Cole. And the song wasn't originally supposed to be in the movie, but Nat King Cole would sing the song during one of the scenes. Now, this song was written by Victor Young and the lyrics by Harold Adamson. And this was the last piece that Victor Young would write as the score in a movie before he passed away. If you compare it to the original, Chris doesn't sing like Nat King Cole. Nat King Cole had a, they both have very distinctive voices. Nat King Cole's voice was always smoother. It definitely has a different feel than what Nat brings to the song, but it's still a wonderful version. And I really, really enjoy what Chris and Billy and Chris did with this. Drifting, which is Jimi Hendrix song. It's similar in the fact that the vocal is carrying the song more than the guitar work. Jimmy and Chris both approached this similar. There is a more of a sense of space on this version, but other than that, it's faithful to the original and what Chris does. What Martin and Wood are doing are adding more space to it. She's All Right is the Muddy Waters wrote this song. And like Smokestack Lightning, they're not playing it straight there. Definitely adding more space to it, letting the song breathe. They're not doing it in that faster tempo. It's pretty cool. Perfect Day, the title track, that was written by Lou Reed for the Transformer album. Probably Lou Reed's most covered song. This is not like the original at all. I'm sorry, Lou Reed's original had Bob Ezrin there, and there's a lot of orchestration on it. It's made very grandiose. Probably one of Lou's finer vocal performances as well. This is a lot more understated, slower, but you get that great falsetto voice of Chris's in the choruses. And I think that works very well. Wild Ox Moan is the other song that I did not know originally. And this was written by Vera Hall and Rudy Pickens Tarts. It was originally a folk song. It's later been covered by Big Sugar, Taj Mahal, and Jeff Maldar. Big Sugar and Taj Mahal did it more as a blues song. This is similar to those versions, not as bluesy. There's a lot more, not much guitar on there at all. It's the guitar is there more for color, and that's the case for a lot of the songs on here. There's more of a focus on Chris's voice and the drumming of Billy on this. Crystal Ship, of course, was written by Jim Morrison. It was on the Doors' self-titled debut. This, again, is different because you don't have Ray Manzarek's keyboard on it, so it has a different feel to it. It doesn't have that elegance that you had from the original or the piano solo. It is very, again, very understated and done a little bit slower in this version. And from this point, you're actually starting to hear a little more guitar work from Chris. Most of these songs, the focus is on Chris's vocals. You're not going to hear him do any of those, have any of those excellent guitar lines that you had on the first few albums, or some of those really passionate solos. But it's definitely a different version. It's really cool. Spoonful, originally written by Willie Dixon, most notably covered by Cream on their debut album, Fresh Cream. And then they have the big extended version on Wheels of Fire, the half studio, half live album from 1968. This is done more tradition, more like Willie's version and Cream's version, I would say. You know, not as much guitar, but he's still playing a rhythm at a pretty steady pace. It's a nice version. Stones in My Pathways, Robert Johnson's song. Like Smokestack Lightning and She's All Right, It's slowed down a little bit, closer to the original in those two songs. But again, it's a very nice version. We got more guitar on here. And Fourth Time Around is the Bob Dylan song that ends the album. This was originally released on the Blonde on Blonde album from 1966. And I love Chris's voice on this. I prefer this more than the original, which I would not normally say about Bob Dylan songs. His voice is what really carries this song, and it's a very, very nice version. There's more going on musically on this song, not as much as Bob Dylan's original, but the trio do an excellent job with this, and Chris's voice sounds excellent. This is a very interesting. Oh, let me show you the cover. This is a very interesting covers album, and I'm taking the insert out of the jewel case just so I can avoid the glare. I'm going to try to keep doing that in the future. I learned that from David Cretan Classics. So very interesting covers album. Like I said, a lot of artists were doing that at this time, but this is a different kind of covers album. It's very laid back. It's avant-garde, but very laid back at the same time. Very cool chill out album. So for all of you who've heard this album, what do you think of Perfect Day? What do you think of Chris's versions on here? And what do you think of Martin and Wood's contributions to this album? Please let me know in the comments. Please join me next week when we continue Chris Whitley Wednesday, when I discuss Chris Whitley's seventh album from 2001, Rocket House. This album is all, it's like a 180, wildly eclectic, very interesting. When I talk about Chris's catalog being very eclectic, we have had much eclectic music here. Here it goes to another level, and he does this again on two more albums, are very eclectic, but very different. This is a very interesting album. It's going to be a lot of fun discussing this one. So just to keep you posted on future appearances, I will be on Slogan's Rock and Metal Extravaganza this coming Saturday, February 22nd, 2025, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I will be on there along with Tim Durling from Tim's Vinyl Confessions and Danny Ancana. Correct me if I'm mispronouncing your name. We're going to be joining Sydney and Logan when we discuss Cinderella's fourth album, Still Climbing, as part of their A Fairy Tale career series on Cinderella. We will also be discussing Tangier's album, Four Winds, from 1989. So, until I see you again, do what you love, and I'll talk to you soon.